Chapter 13. Heirs of Salvation. In January 1917, Susa Gates traveled to New York City to visit a sick friend, Elizabeth McCune, who served with her on the Relief Society General Board. Elizabeth and her husband, Alfred, had moved to New York that winter, so Alfred could conduct business in the city. When Susa learned about her friend's illness, she came at once to help her recuperate. By the time she arrived, however, Elizabeth was already on the mend. Still, she urged Susa to stay and keep her company. While there, Susa could use the city's libraries to conduct genealogical research, which had become an all-consuming part of her church service. In Denmark 15 years earlier, Susa had fallen gravely ill while attending a meeting of the International Council of Women. She sought a blessing from Apostle Francis Lyman, the president of the European Mission at the time, who blessed her not to fear death and promised that she had a work to do in the spirit world. But then, midway through the blessing, he paused for about 2 minutes. "There has been a council held in heaven," he finally told Susa, "and it has been decided you shall live to perform temple work, and you shall do a greater work than you have ever done before." After recovering from her illness, Susa had dedicated herself to genealogy and temple work. She became active in the Genealogical Society of Utah, a church-run organization created after Wilford Woodruff's 1894 revelation on temple ceilings. She began working in the Salt Lake Temple, teaching genealogy classes and writing a weekly column on family history for the Deseret Evening News. When Susa and Elizabeth McCune became members of the Relief Society General Board in 1911, they made genealogy and temple work a new priority for the women of the church. They visited wards and branches in the United States and Canada and trained saints to do research on their ancestry. Susa also wrote genealogy lessons for the Relief Society magazine, and, at the request of the General Board, she was currently writing a reference book to aid saints in their family history work. While in New York City, Susa researched McCune family names at the library as well. She also did her best to give Elizabeth all the love and attention she could offer. The day before Susa was scheduled to return home, Elizabeth felt well enough to attend a Relief Society meeting at the Eastern States Mission headquarters in the city. Susa spoke to the women about genealogical research. Even though the number of Latter-day Saint women in New York City was small, she felt the Spirit powerfully among them. On her return trip, Susa stopped in 2 other cities to visit the saints. After one meeting, a branch president stopped to speak with her. "I always enjoy the testimonies of the aged," he said, "and love to hear an old person speak of their experiences." Susa laughed inside. "You are an aged person, Susa, do you hear?" she told herself. She was 60 years old, but she still had years ahead of her, and so much more work to do. "We are living in critical times," Joseph F. Smith acknowledged as he opened the church's April 1917 General Conference. Newspapers throughout Utah were filled with alarming reports of German aggression against the United States. For the past 2.5 years, the United States had remained neutral in the war. But Germany had recently renewed its policy of unrestricted submarine warfare, making American ships vulnerable to attack. German officials had also sought an alliance with Mexico, creating a pathway to attack the United States from the south. In response, the U.S. Congress had authorized President Woodrow Wilson to declare war on Germany. Standing at the pulpit of the Salt Lake Tabernacle, President Smith understood that many saints in the congregation were anxious and fearful. He encouraged them to seek for peace, happiness, and the well-being of the human family. "If we do our duty today as members of the church and as citizens of our state," he said, "we need not greatly fear what tomorrow may bring forth." President Wilson formally declared war later that day. Nearly 5,000 young men from Utah, most of them Latter-day Saints, soon enlisted. Many women in the church joined the Red Cross to serve as wartime nurses. American saints who could not enlist in the armed forces supported their country in other ways, such as by purchasing government-issued Liberty bonds to help fund the war. Betty McCune, Elizabeth's daughter, learned to operate and service an automobile and became an ambulance driver. Elder B.H. Roberts of the 70 volunteered to serve as one of 3 Latter-day Saint chaplains in the Army. Shortly after General Conference, Joseph F. Smith traveled to Hawaii and observed the progress on the temple in Laie. Under the direction of foremen Hamana Kalili and David Haili, workers had already completed the outside of the temple and were now busily finishing its interior. Built from reinforced concrete and lava rocks from the nearby mountains, the Hawaii temple was cross-shaped and had no steeple. Cement sculptures of scriptural scenes cast by Utah artist Leo and Avard Fairbanks adorned the outside of the building. In October, a month before his 79th birthday, the prophet told the saints that he was beginning to feel old. "I think I am just about as young as I ever was in my life, in spirit," he told them, "but my body gets